before this session. Okay, so last time we discussed about the Buddha told Ananda that uh, that you need to recognize your uh, whole thinking, otherwise you be uh, revolved in the samsara. That's why he say here. He mentioned that. I mean that Ananda, he mentioned that his eyes and his body, his mind, inside his thought is in his mind. And last time we discussed about what's that? Oh, okay, the one who has karma, right? Whether they still here, they still recognize or not, right? Yeah, for me, especially in Buddhist view, yeah, those people who are in coma, they still recognize something. They still hear our voice, our expression, but they could not express themselves because they may have some problem or brain damage. But they still have that kind of awareness. Then, yeah. Okay. So let me read this one here. Uh, Ananda replied, one all living beings born in the world through 10 types of birth. Oh, okay, we did this one. Oh, yeah, the Buddha mentioned about this. Sorry. Uh, so he, so at first, yeah, Ananda, he said that everyone use the eye to see, use the thought, the thinking in the mind to recognize. So we would say that whether you sit here in the hall, you see uh, Chetavanda Park first. Yeah, he said yes. Mm. So Ananda say that he see first the Buddha in the hall, then assembly, then outside. So the Buddha say, ask further that when you see the park, what push you to see? So he said that because the door and window are open, that's why he could see. So this is one. This part we will stop here. Yeah. Okay, let me read this part. Ananda prostrated himself at the Buddha's feet and knew to receive the holy instruction when the Buddha reminded him that he need to be sincere when he ready to give a teaching. The Buddha say, if you are right about that, while sitting in this hall, you see the park outside to open doors and windows. It will be possible for someone sitting here to see everything outside without seeing Buddha within. So that's Buddha asked. Is that possible to, to see only outside without seeing Buddha inside? So he replied that one cannot see the grow and steam outside without seeing Buddha. Definitely, it replied that we should see someone first inside before we see outside. Yeah. Ivan, would you like to read the next one, please?
Buddha said, Ananda, uh, it is the same with you. Your mind is not deluded. It will be clear about all this. However, if your knowing mind was really in your body, you should first be clear about everything inside it. You should therefore see everything in your body before seeing things outside it, even if you can't see your heart, liver, spleen, and stomach. At least you should be clear about your growing nails and hair, about that which moves along with your nerves and the pulse in your veins. Why are you not clear about all that? If you do not see things within, how can you see those outside? Therefore, your contention that your knowing mind is inside your body is groundless.
Yeah, sorry, I think we did that last time. Okay, yeah. You can continue, Ivan, to read the next one. I think last time we talked,
Mhm.
we read this part. You go ahead, please.
Uh, Ananda bowed and said, "After hearing the Buddha's Dharma voice, I now understand that my mind is really outside my body. For instance, a lamp should light up everything in a room before the courtyard outside through the open door. If I do not see what is in my body, but see things outside it, this is like a lamp placed outside a room, which cannot light what is in. This being so clear that there can be no doubt, am no doubt. Am I still wrong about what the Buddha means?" Um, Ananda is trying to find a way to explain how intention or self consciousness follows thought, um, or attention. If his attention is viewing something out in the courtyard, then his mind and consciousness follows it beyond. It's no longer inside his body, recognizing himself. It's not grounded in his being. Um, and you can observe, like a light, these other things, but you should still see what is nearest to you and grounded in your being first.
Mm. So what happened with his standpoint here? What wrong? What wrong with his views here?
What's wrong with his view here? I don't know that I understand, Ty.
Oh, so so uh, at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ananda he mentioned that the eye is in body and the mind is inside the body, but the Buddha dispute, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if you think the mind is inside your body, but why don't you see your organ first, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
why in this passage, Ananda he say the mind is out of the body, outside the body. So what's wrong with this argument that mind is really outside the body? Like him, he give the example like the lamp that we light outside the courtyard, we can see to see that light outside the courtyard. So what's wrong with that assumption then? Mm. William, do you have any idea?
Yeah. And there's, well, I want to talk about other things, but I'll try to narrow myself to this. Yeah, it seems obvious that the mind couldn't be exclusively outside the body, because we can perceive very readily within the body in ways that we can't perceive outside. Like I can't feel the table, but I can feel my body. Like throughout the whole thing, like my awareness really saturates it. I don't recall the reasoning the Buddha gives, though. I feel like his is much more much simple. Oh, if oh, it's like then we would see our own eyes, kind of thing. Like we would see, we would, if it was outside our body, we would, like, I think that was the reasoning that he gave. But to me, I would just say like that feel I feel the body so vividly, the mind couldn't be exclusively outside of it.
Dad, here's a crystal the shape of a heart.
Sorry, William, I have some phone. Yeah, so what do you think? What do you think about this type of view? He say that the mind is outside his body. What happened then?
Well, I would I would think a couple things. One, then I should feel things outside my body as vividly as I feel my body. And the we probably wouldn't mistake the body for self if the mind was exclusively outside of the body. It would be seen as like an object that was separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, we would probably be aware of, like, we would see our own face.
Mm. So it's no way, right? It's no way for the mind out of the body, right?
Yeah, not exclusively. Yeah, we couldn't
No way,
say.
right?
Yeah.
So Ivan, what do you think? What is the problem with the eyes? With his view, he said that the mind is outside the body. What happened then? What's wrong with that?
I I understand where William's coming from. Of if the mind's outside the body, it becomes like a third person view
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
self.
Mm-hmm.
But if the mind isn't separate from the body or can't be separate from the body, stuff like empathy, I guess. Someone else is feeling a thing, but I can feel their pain or feel them.
Mm.
Is that not separate from my own body? It is experienced solely in them, in their body or experience.
Mm. So again, I think it's say totally wrong. If we recognize that the assumption the mind outside body, if the mind outside body, that means we would not have any kind of feeling, right? We would not have any kind of
Bless you.
emotion, right? This is
Yeah.
so illogical, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the point. The Buddha asked Ananda about his true mind. So he argued, I mean that Ananda, he argued the mind is inside body, but after the Buddha dispute that, he said the body is, I mean, the mind is outside the body. He just jumped around because he could not recognize what the mind is about. So that later on the Buddha will make a conclusion that he need to recognize his own true mind. Um, okay, yeah. So even that's why he still mm, have doubt whether his assumption is right or not. That's why he say I am still wrong. So he recognize his assumption may be wrong. That's why he mentioned that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. William, please.
The Buddha said, all the bhikshus followed me to Sarasti to beg for food, and have now returned to Jetavana Park. I have taken my meal, but as one bhikshu is still eating, is the whole community well fed? Ananda replied, no, world-honored one. Though they are arhats, they have not the same body or lifespan. Then how can one, by eating, cause all the others to satisfy their hunger?
Yeah. This is what the argument here.
So all the bhikshus that beg for food, one is still eating. Is the whole community well fed? No. Though they are arhats, they have not the same body or lifespan. Yeah, so, and this is in response to the mind being outside of the body. So if the mind was outside of the body, well, that's interesting. Would it follow that if most of the assembly had eaten, everyone would be well fed? If each individual's mind was outside of the body, I mean, the example makes sense. Obviously, no, the person wouldn't be well fed if they hadn't eaten yet. But how does that relate to the mind being outside the body? Because some people had eaten. Would they, if it was outside the body, would they be satisfied by other people eating because they would perceive the other people's minds which were satisfied by their body eating? I think it seems like it's very difficult to understand because it's kind of like it's kind of showing how yeah we couldn't conclude that the mind's outside the body. But I do have a little trouble following the logic of this analogy.
Yeah, so the logic is that if the mind is outside the body, so one person finish or fulfill the meal, all people will be filled or be poor, right? So uh, that's why the Buddha say here, he made the argument that if one bishop with one monk is still eating, is the whole community well fed. That's mean if the mind out of the body, right? So if that's the case, so one monk, while he's eating, all communities, all people surrounding him will be well fed too, will be poor too. If the mind is outside the body, that's what his argument is about.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, there's
It's
no
hard to
way.
imagine a world in which that would be the case.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
illogical, right? Yeah, that's why they will say that. Okay, and the Buddha said, if your knowing mind is outside your body, the two are separate. That means our body and our mind are separate. Thus, when your mind knows something, your body should not feel it. And when your body feels something, your mind should not be aware of it. Now, as I show you my hand, when your eyes see it, those your mind discern it. Another reply, yes, one, my mind discerned it. So would I say, if so, how can your mind be outside your body? Therefore, the contention that your known and discerned mind is outside your body is groundless. So it's a simple argument, right? The Buddha say, if the mind outside the body means the two are separate, right? So when the mind knows something, the body should not feel. And when the body feels something, the mind would not be aware of that. But that's different story. So when I show my hand, when your eye see it, then you might discern this, you might recognize it, say yes. So that means the mind and the body go hand in hand. That's just the more logical. That's why the Buddha dispute his assumption about the mind outside the body is groundless, is illogical. Mm. Yeah, so again, this one is so important because most of the time we don't recognize who we are. We don't recognize our mind. So the Buddha try to dispute whichever argument Ananda says so that later on he could help Ananda to recognize his own mind. Um, Ivan, please. Uh,
Uh, where
this
the
one
Buddha
here.
asked, "Where
No,
is it?"
no. The Ananda say.
Ananda replied, "Since my knowing mind
No,
does
sorry,
not see."
sorry. Ananda say up here. Sorry, up here.
Ananda, oh, sorry. World honored one, as you have said, if my mind does not see what is in my body, it is not within it. And if my body and mind know each other, they are not separate. And my mind is therefore not outside my body. Now, after thinking about it, I know where my mind is. The Buddha asked, "Where is it?" Ananda replied, "Since my knowing mind does not see what is in my body, but can see things outside, I think it is hidden in my sense organ. For instance, if one covers one's eyes with a crystal bowl, the latter does not obstruct this sense organ, which simply follows the faculty of seeing to distinguish all things seen. Thus, if my knowing mind does not see what is in my body, it is because it is the sense organ. And if it sees clearly what is outside without being obstructed, it is because it is hidden in that organ."
Hmm. You understand this argument?
that he's arguing that his mind is hidden inside his own mind to some extent. I really like this idea of covering one's eyes with a crystal bowl. It doesn't obstruct the sense of the eyes, but seeing is different than distinguishing all things seen. It's looking through like a funhouse mirror almost. Things are warped or skewed or viewed.
Okay. So what's wrong with this argument then?
If the mind was stuck inside the sense organ of the mind, you would almost be catatonic. You couldn't receive anything in.
Mm-hmm.
It'd almost be like self-lobotomized.
Well, you, William, what do you think? What's wrong with this one?
Well, it seems that any location Ananda places the mind isn't going to work because of his conception about the mind
Yeah.
is false. But this one, if it was just inside the eye alone, well, then what about sound? What about taste?
Mm-hmm.
What about touch? But then also, if it was within the eye, then we would perceive seeing out of the eye. We would see the inside of the eye. If there was like, a little person in there inside the eye looking out. So
Mm-hmm.
and I contemplate this and go back to the original question where the Buddha asked, basically, what is it that sees the Buddha? And the Buddha was pointing towards this deeper sense, kind of beyond conceptualization, that really leads one out of thinking. But Ananda's just being straightforward with his thinking mind, and we can't reduce that mind to a thing, to a sense of self. So since we can't have thingness to it, we're not able to place it anywhere. So it's just cool how these thinking assumptions that we live kind of from automatically are just being highlighted.
Mm-hmm. It's just normal for most of us whenever we ask about what is your mind. So most of the time, I think we discussed last time, we think that our mind is on the nerve system, right? That's why we talk about the coma people when their brain pronounced dead, but they still live there, right? So where's the mind then? Where's the awareness
Yeah,
then?
I think when we speak about mind, we have to speak clearly, because in this case, I don't think we're saying like the mind is like the ability to do math, because the mind can still be present and someone is unable to do math, like a baby, or the ability to think in a certain way, to control thought, figure something out, direct thought.
Mm-hmm.
That we're not talking about these different functions of the intellect, but more of the foundation of that. And that, I think we can kind of dance around it and kind of try to point at it, but we can't really like say what it is, because it's not a thing. It's like the space in which all things exist. Saying it's before is not really accurate, because that's a concept, but it's like one way to kind of point at it. It's like before or primary to like things.
Mm-hmm.
And we infer the existence of mind because of the perception of things too. So they're also one in essence, but then like oneness to the point where there's not one, because you need two for there to be one, or you need none in one for there to be one, but like a wholeness to the sense where there's nothing outside, there's nothing separate or outside, so you can't really draw any distinctions about the true mind, because it's, it's, I think it's commonly referred to as thus, just suchness.
Well, Ivan, it's confusion, right? Ivan, what do you think? Hmm.
I'm trying to think of, there's a word that I can't grasp. It's right outside my thinking. Anyhow, yeah, like I'm just processing all the things. The idea that the mind is the thing that perceives our consciousness, right? Like it's the thing in our body that named itself. Like the brain named itself ultimately, and like how does that work to then try and place a position? I guess you view it, like William said, as an object in some context, even consciousness to some extent as an object of like, my consciousness is here, my focus is here or there, or internal and observing and present. But
Yeah. Probably next week we can discuss about the definition of the mind, awareness, and so forth, right? Before we discuss further, otherwise it'll be confusion, right? Uh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I need to end early today because I have the meeting around 8:30.
I'm so
Okay,
sorry for
that's
being late.
okay, no problem. So anyway, so thank you. So see you
Thank
next
you,
week then.
Tay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
See,
Evan.
thank you all.
Ivan. Thank you.